The garage door opener had been broken for 3 weeks, but I'd been too busy debugging server crashes to fix it. That mundane malfunction saved my marriage, or rather, it exposed the rotting corpse that my marriage had become. I'm Ethan Merrick, 44 years old, software architect for a mid-sized tech company in what used to be a thriving industrial city. Now it's half gentrified coffee shops and half abandoned warehouses, the kind of place Stephen King would set a story if he wrote about divorce instead of demons. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Standing in my driveway at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, fumbling with my keys after another 16-hour day fixing other people's coding disasters, I heard Dana's voice drifting through the thin garage wall. My wife of 19 years was on the phone, and she definitely wasn't talking to her sister about wedding venues. "You make me feel alive again," she whispered, her voice thick with an intimacy I hadn't heard directed at me in years. "I can't wait to see you tomorrow at the usual place. Wear that blue shirt I love." I froze, key halfway to the lock. The usual place? What usual place? "I know it's risky, but I need this. I need you," Dana continued, her voice dropping to that breathy whisper she used to use with me back when we actually touched each other for reasons other than passing the remote. Well, at least someone's getting lucky tonight, I thought, surprised by how calm I felt. Maybe I'd suspected this for months without admitting it to myself. The late venue tours that stretched into evening. The new lingerie that never made an appearance in our bedroom. The way she'd started showering immediately after coming home, claiming she felt dusty from traipsing through old barns and country clubs. I waited until I heard her footsteps heading upstairs before entering through the garage. Our house was one of those sterile suburban monuments to success, all granite countertops and stainless steel appliances that photographed well but felt like living inside a magazine spread. Dana had decorated it in shades of beige and cream, colors that she claimed were timeless, but struck me as lifeless. The next morning, Dana hummed while making coffee. Actually hummed, something she hadn't done around me in approximately 3 years. She wore a new dress, navy blue with tiny flowers, and had taken extra care with her makeup. "Big day today?" I asked, watching her over my laptop screen. "Oh, the usual. Meeting with the Harrington wedding party, then checking out that new venue in Millbrook." She didn't meet my eyes, suddenly fascinated by stirring her coffee. "I might be late again. These venue tours can run long." "I bet they can," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Anyone going with you? Your assistant, maybe?" "Just me today. Jasmine has that other wedding to handle downtown." Dana grabbed her purse, kissing my cheek with the same enthusiasm she'd show a distant relative. "Don't wait up if I'm late." After she left, I sat in our kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of our perfect life. Wedding photos on the mantel, showing us young and stupidly happy. Sophie's graduation picture from last year, our 17-year-old daughter grinning in her cap and gown. Family vacation snapshots from beaches and mountains, all of us smiling for the camera while our marriage slowly decomposed behind the scenes. My phone buzzed. Work emergency, as usual. But for once, I ignored it. Instead, I did something I'd never done in 19 years of marriage. I opened Dana's laptop. She'd left it charging on the kitchen counter, probably in her rush to meet whoever was making her feel alive. Her password was Sophie's birthday. Not exactly NSA-level security. Her email was clean, but then again, she wasn't stupid enough to use her main account for an affair. But people always forget about browser history. 3 months of searches for discreet hotels near downtown, how to delete text messages permanently, and most damning, divorce laws in our state. She'd been planning this longer than I'd suspected, researching her exit strategy while I worked late nights to pay for the house she was already preparing to leave. My phone rang. Lance Morrison, my least favorite co-worker, probably calling to dump another crisis in my lap. Ethan. Thank God. The Morrison account servers are down again, and the client is threatening to handle it yourself, Lance, I said, hanging up. For the first time in years, I had more important things to do than fix other people's problems. I drove to Dana's office, a converted Victorian house downtown that she shared with 2 other wedding planners. Her car wasn't there. According to her calendar, she should have been meeting with the Harringtons until noon. It was barely 10:30. The Harrington meeting was fictional, just like most of her schedule lately. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your email. A friend. The email contained 10 photographs, all time-stamped within the last month. Dana entering boutique hotels with a man I recognized immediately. Colt Foster, my best friend since college. Colt, who'd been my best man, who'd held Sophie when she was a baby, who'd been coming to our house for Sunday dinners and acting like my brother while screwing my wife. In the photos, Dana wore different outfits, but Colt wore the same leather jacket in 3 of them, the one I'd helped him pick out for his birthday last year. His car, a red Mustang convertible that he treated like a beloved child, was visible in the parking lot shots. I recognized the hotels too. The Grand View downtown, where we'd spent our anniversary 3 years ago. The Millbrook Inn, where Dana claimed to be checking out venues. The Riverside Lodge, which definitely wasn't on any wedding venue list unless people were getting married in dive bars. My hands shook as I scrolled through the images. Not from anger yet, that would come later. From the sheer, breathtaking stupidity of it all. They'd been careless, sloppy, practically advertising their affair to anyone paying attention, which apparently someone had been. I drove home and searched the house with the methodical precision I usually reserved for debugging code. In Dana's gym bag, buried under yoga pants and protein bars, I found a second phone, a cheap burner with 2 contacts, C and J. The text thread with C was exactly what you'd expect: logistics, longing, and enough explicit content to make me wish I'd never learned to read. But the messages with J were more interesting. You need to be more careful. People are starting to talk. I know what I'm doing. Mind your own business. This affects me too. If this blows up, we both go down. Relax. Ethan's clueless. He's too buried in his computers to notice anything. Well, that stung. But not as much as what came next. The money transfer went through. Same account as before. Good. Keep him distracted with work. I need more time. Money transfer? I grabbed my laptop and logged into our joint accounts. Over the past 6 months, Dana had been moving money from our savings into a personal account I didn't have access to. Small amounts, spread out over time, but it added up to nearly $30,000. She wasn't just cheating, she was robbing me blind while doing it. I printed the photos, copied the text messages, and documented every financial transaction. Then I sat in my home office, surrounded by evidence of my wife's betrayal, and started planning. If Dana wanted to play games, I'd show her what happened when you challenged someone who solved problems for a living. The next few days passed in a surreal haze of normalcy. Dana continued her charade, chattering about wedding plans and venue tours while I nodded and made appropriate sounds. She had no idea that I knew, which gave me a strange sense of power, like being the only person in a horror movie who knows the monster is real. Colt called twice, wanting to grab beers and catch up. I declined both times, claiming work timelines. His voice had that forced casualness that people use when they're hiding something huge. Rain check then, buddy. Maybe this weekend? Sure, I lied. This weekend sounds perfect. At work, I found myself studying my co-workers with new eyes. Did they know? Lance Morrison certainly seemed to be watching me more carefully than usual, and Janet from HR had given me one of those sympathetic looks that women reserve for men whose wives are screwing around. The humiliation was almost worse than the betrayal. Being cuckolded was bad enough, but being the last to know, That was just pathetic. Thursday evening, Dana announced she'd be working late again. The Patterson wedding is this Saturday, and we're still finalizing details. I knew the Patterson wedding was next month. I'd helped her update her calendar system last year, and I still had access to the back-end database. But I just smiled and said, "Don't work too hard." After she left, I drove to Colt's condo complex and waited. Sure enough, Dana's white BMW pulled into the visitor parking at 7:15. She hurried toward the building, checking her reflection in the glass doors like a teenager on a first date. I took photos, lots of photos. They stayed inside for 2 hours and 37 minutes. When Dana emerged, her hair was messed up and her lipstick was gone. She looked happier than I'd seen her in years, practically glowing with post-connection satisfaction. I followed her home, staying far enough back to avoid detection. She beat me there by 10 minutes, just enough time to shower and put on pajamas before I walked through the door. "How was work?" she asked, not looking up from her magazine. "The usual disasters," I said. "How was the Patterson meeting?" "Oh, you know how it is. Bridezillas and last-minute changes." She yawned theatrically. "I'm exhausted. Think I'll head to bed early." I wanted to grab her shoulders and shake her until she told me the truth. Instead, I said, "Sleep well." Friday morning brought a new development. Sophie, home from her senior year of high school for a long weekend, joined us for breakfast. Our daughter had inherited Dana's delicate features and my stubborn streak, a combination that made her both beautiful and impossible to control. "Dad, you look terrible," she said, pouring herself coffee. "Are you sleeping?" "Just work stress," I said, which was partially true. I'd been lying awake most nights, staring at the ceiling and planning my next moves. "Maybe you should take a vacation," Dana suggested, still not meeting my eyes. "You've been working so hard lately." "Great idea," I said. "We could go somewhere together, just the two of us, like a second honeymoon." For just a moment, Dana looked panicked. "Oh, I couldn't possibly get away right now. Wedding season, you know. Maybe in the fall?" "Of course, wedding season." I smiled at her. "Wouldn't want to interfere with your work." After Dana left for another venue tour, Sophie cornered me in the kitchen. "Okay, what's going on?" she demanded. "You two are acting weird, even for married people." "Nothing's going on," I said, but Sophie had always been able to read me like source code. "Dad, I'm 17, not 7. Mom's been acting strange for months, and you look like someone stole your dog. What's happening?" I almost told her everything. The photos, the burner phone, the money transfers. But Sophie worshipped her mother, and I couldn't bring myself to destroy that relationship. Not yet. "Just some marriage stuff," I said finally. "Nothing for you to worry about." "Marriage stuff," she repeated flatly. "Right, because that's not ominous at all." That afternoon, I made a decision that would change everything. I drove to the boxing gym where Colt and I used to work out together in college. He'd mentioned recently that he'd started going back, trying to recapture his youth or some such nonsense. I found him hitting the heavy bag, working up a sweat in expensive workout gear. He looked good for 45, still had most of his hair, and hadn't developed the gut that plagued most men our age. I could see why Dana might find him attractive, which somehow made it worse. "Ethan!" He grinned when he saw me, pulling off his gloves. "What brings you to the sweat palace?" "Thought I'd try to get back in shape," I said, grabbing a pair of gloves from the rack. "Mind if I work in?" "Of course not, buddy. Like old times." We sparred for 20 minutes, just light contact, feeling each other out. Colt was still quick, but he'd gotten soft. Too many client dinners and not enough real training. I'd been hitting the gym regularly, working off stress, and it showed. "You're looking good," he said during a water break. "Really good. Dana must be taking care of you." "Dana's been busy lately," I said, watching his face carefully. "Lots of venue tours. Working late almost every night." Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt? Fear? "Yeah, wedding planning seems like tough work. All those demanding brides. Demanding clients in general, I agreed. People who want things they shouldn't have. People who take what doesn't belong to them. We were circling each other now, gloves up, but the real fight was happening with words. That's an interesting way to put it, Colt said, throwing a lazy jab that I easily blocked. I've always been interested in ethics, I said, stepping inside his guard and landing a solid body shot. The difference between right and wrong, loyalty and betrayal. Colt stumbled back, winded. Ethan, what are you… I hit him again, harder this time, right in the solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping. Oops, I said. Sorry, buddy. Guess I don't know my own strength. When he straightened up, his face was red and his eyes were watery. What the hell was that? Just sparring, I said innocently. Like old times, right? We finished the session in silence. As we were changing in the locker room, Colt tried to salvage the situation. Hey, maybe we should grab dinner this weekend. You, me, Dana, like we used to. I looked at him for a long moment. This man who'd been my friend for over 20 years, who'd betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. I don't think that's a good idea, I said finally. Why not? Because I might do something we'd both regret. I left him standing there, confusion and growing fear written across his face. That evening, I took the first concrete step in my revenge. I called Colt's boss at the car dealership, a man named Frank Graft, who had a reputation for being old-fashioned about morality. Frank, this is Ethan Merrick. Colt Foster's friend? Sure, Ethan. How are you? I'm fine, but I thought you should know something about Colt. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but… I sent him the photos anonymously, with timestamps showing that Colt had been at hotels during work hours, using company time for his personal affairs. I didn't mention that the woman was my wife. I let Frank draw his own conclusions about Colt's character. The next morning, Colt called me, panicked. Ethan, I've been suspended pending investigation. Someone sent my boss photos of me at hotels during work hours. I think I'm being set up. That's terrible, I said, injecting just the right amount of concern into my voice. Any idea who might want to hurt you? I can't think of anyone unless… He trailed off. Unless what? Nothing. Never mind. Look, I might need a character reference. You've known me forever. Would you be willing to… Of course, I lied smoothly. Anything for an old friend. After I hung up, I smiled for the first time in days. This was just the beginning. Dana came home that Friday evening in a foul mood, slamming doors and muttering under her breath. I was in the kitchen, pretending to read work emails while actually researching divorce lawyers. Everything okay? I asked, not looking up from my laptop. Colt's having some kind of work crisis, she said, then immediately looked like she regretted mentioning his name. I mean, I heard from Jasmine who heard from someone else. You know how gossip spreads. What kind of crisis? Something about being suspended. Probably nothing serious. She was trying too hard to sound casual, the same way she'd been trying too hard to act normal for weeks. That's too bad, I said. He seemed fine when I saw him at the gym yesterday. Dana froze in the middle of opening the refrigerator. You saw Colt? We sparred a little. He didn't mention any work problems. I closed my laptop and looked at her directly. He did seem distracted, though, like he had something on his mind. I'm sure it's nothing, Dana said quickly. You know how paranoid he can be. That weekend, I implemented phase 2 of my plan. Dana had a major client meeting on Monday with Mrs. Eleanor Harrington, the wealthiest woman in the city and a notorious perfectionist. The Harrington wedding was Dana's biggest contract of the year, worth nearly $100,000 and the kind of prestige that could make or break a wedding planner's career. I'd done my research on Mrs. Harrington. She was old money, conservative, and absolutely intolerant of scandal. Her own marriage had lasted 53 years, and she expected the same moral standards from everyone around her. Sunday evening, I created a fake email account and sent Mrs. Harrington a carefully worded message. Dear Mrs. Harrington, I feel obligated to inform you about your wedding planner's recent activities. As someone who values the sanctity of marriage, I thought you should know that Dana Merrick has been conducting an extramarital affair, including during business hours when she should be working on client events. I have photographic evidence if you require it. A concerned friend. I didn't send the photos immediately. I wanted to see how Mrs. Harrington would handle the initial allegation. Monday morning, Dana left for her meeting with unusual nervousness. She'd changed outfits 3 times and spent an hour on her makeup, muttering about making the right impression. She was back within an hour, pale and shaking. "How did it go?" I asked innocently. "Terrible," Dana said, slumping into a kitchen chair. "Mrs. Harrington fired me. She said she'd received disturbing information about my personal conduct and couldn't risk associating her family with scandal." "What kind of disturbing information?" "I don't know. Someone sent her an anonymous email claiming I was having an affair. Can you believe that? Who would do such a thing?" I made appropriate shocked noises while mentally checking off another item on my revenge list. "That's awful, honey. Do you have any idea who might want to hurt you?" "I can't think of anyone. Unless—" She got the same look Colt had, like she was starting to connect dots she didn't want to connect. "Unless what?" "Nothing. I'm probably just being paranoid." But she was looking at me differently now, with the first hint of suspicion. That afternoon, while Dana was out trying to salvage her remaining client relationships, I received an unexpected visitor. Sophie came home from school early, claiming a headache, but I could tell she had something on her mind. "Dad, I need to ask you something, and I want a straight answer." "Okay. Are you and Mom getting divorced?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "What makes you ask that?" "Because I'm not blind or stupid. You barely talk to each other anymore. Mom's been acting weird for months, always going out and being secretive about it. And you—" She studied my face. "You look like someone who's planning something." I sat down across from her at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd had countless family dinners, homework sessions, and heart-to-heart talks over the years. "Your mother and I are going through some difficulties," I said carefully. "What kind of difficulties?" "Adult difficulties. Marriage difficulties." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "Is it my fault? Because I'm going away to college next year?" "Oh, sweetheart, no." I reached across the table and took her hand. "This has nothing to do with you. You're the best thing your mother and I ever did together." "Then what's wrong? Why won't you tell me?" I almost broke then. Almost told her everything about her mother's betrayal, about Colt's treachery, about my carefully planned revenge. But she was still my little girl, despite being 17 and taller than her mother. She didn't need to carry the weight of adult failures. "Sometimes people grow apart," I said instead. "Sometimes they make choices that hurt the people they love." "Are you talking about Mom or yourself?" That was the question, wasn't it? Was I the victim here, or was I becoming something else entirely? "I don't know anymore," I admitted. That evening, Colt showed up at our door, looking haggard and desperate. Dana was upstairs, supposedly taking a bath, but probably texting him on her burner phone. "Ethan, I need to talk to you," he said. "Come in." I led him to the living room, curious to see how he'd play this. "I think someone's trying to destroy my life," he said, without preamble. "First the work thing. Now I'm hearing rumors around town about me being involved with a married woman." "That's terrible," I said. "Any idea who the married woman is supposed to be?" He looked at me for a long moment, fear and guilt warring in his expression. No idea at all." "Well, I'm sure it's just gossip. You know how people talk in a small city?" "Right, just gossip." He was sweating now, despite the cool evening air. "Ethan, we've been friends for over 20 years. If you ever heard anything bad about me, anything at all, you'd tell me, right?" Of course, I lied. We're brothers, Colt. Brothers stick together. After he left, I found Dana waiting in the kitchen, her face tight with anxiety. What did Colt want? She asked. Just friend stuff. He's having a rough time lately. What kind of rough time? Work problems, personal problems, the usual midlife crisis stuff. I watched her carefully. Why? Are you worried about him? I'm worried about all our friends, she said, but she couldn't meet my eyes. That night, I made the final preparations for phase 3 of my plan. I'd been patient, methodical, building my case like a prosecutor preparing for trial, but patience had its limits, and I was reaching mine. Tomorrow was our 19th wedding anniversary. I'd made reservations at the Skyline restaurant, the revolving rooftop place downtown where we'd had our first date. Dana thought we were going to celebrate. She was half right. We were definitely going to mark the occasion. I just wasn't sure she'd like my version of a celebration. Our anniversary dinner started exactly as Dana expected. I wore the navy suit she'd bought me for Christmas. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, and we sat at a window table overlooking the city lights like a normal couple celebrating 19 years of marriage. This is nice, Dana said, sipping her wine and actually smiling at me for the first time in weeks. We should do this more often. We should do a lot of things more often, I agreed, cutting into my steak with surgical precision. Communication, for instance. Honesty. Trust. Something flickered in her eyes, but she kept smiling. You're in a philosophical mood tonight. Anniversary dinners make me reflective, thinking about our journey together, where we've been, where we're going. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small wrapped box. I got you something. Dana's face lit up with genuine pleasure. Whatever else was happening between us, she still loved receiving gifts. Ethan, you didn't have to open it, I said. She unwrapped the box with the careful attention she gave to everything, preserving the paper and ribbon. Inside was a smaller box, and inside that was a USB drive. What is this? She asked, confusion replacing excitement. Your anniversary present, 19 years of memories. I pulled out my laptop and plugged in the drive. I put together a little slideshow of our greatest hits. The first image that appeared on the screen was Dana and Colt entering the Grandview Hotel, timestamp clearly visible. Dana's face went white. Ethan, what? Wait, there's more. I clicked to the next photo. Dana and Colt at the Millbrook Inn. Then the Riverside Lodge. Then Colt's condo building. Dana looked around frantically, as if she expected help to materialize from the other diners. Please, she whispered. Not here. Why not here? This is where we had our first date. Seems appropriate for our last one, too. I reached into my other pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. Divorce papers, already filed with the court. You've been served. Ethan, please, we can talk about this. We could have talked about it 3 months ago, or 6 months ago, or whenever you decided that our marriage vows were more like guidelines than actual commitments. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair, but you chose to have this conversation with Colt instead. Dana was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in dark streams. It's not what you think. It just happened. You never meant to get caught, I corrected. There's a difference. How long have you known? Long enough to document everything. The hotels, the burner phone, the money you've been stealing from our joint accounts. I signaled the waiter for the check. Long enough to make sure you get exactly what you deserve in the divorce. The money wasn't stealing. It was my money, too. Not anymore. Turns out adultery affects asset division in this state. Who knew? As if summoned by the drama, Colt appeared at our table, looking panicked and out of breath. Dana, I got your text. What's... He stopped when he saw my face. Oh. Colt! I stood up and shook his hand enthusiastically. Perfect timing. I was just telling Dana about my anniversary gift. The photos turned out great, don't you think? Colt's face went through several interesting color changes. Ethan, I can explain. No need. The pictures explain everything. I turned to address the nearby tables, raising my voice just enough to carry. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to propose a toast to my wife Dana and my best friend Colt, who've been celebrating their own special relationship for the past 3 months. Here's to friendship, loyalty, and the sanctity of marriage. Several diners turned to stare, phones coming out to record the unfolding drama. Dana buried her face in her hands while Colt stood frozen like a deer in headlights. Ethan, stop, Dana pleaded. Please, you're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself? I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. That's rich, coming from someone who's been screwing my best friend in half the hotels downtown. I threw cash on the table and walked out, leaving them to deal with the stares and whispers. In the elevator, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Satisfaction. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Over the next week, I systematically destroyed what remained of Dana's business and Colt's reputation. I sent the hotel photos to every wedding vendor in the city, along with a carefully worded explanation about Dana's unprofessional conduct during business hours. I created fake social media accounts and posted reviews of Dana's services, mentioning her tendency to use client meetings as covers for personal affairs. The response was swift and brutal. Dana's remaining clients canceled their contracts. Vendors refused to work with her. Her business partner Jasmine distanced herself from the scandal, eventually buying out Dana's share of the company for a fraction of what it was worth. Colt fared even worse. His suspension became a termination when Frank Graff decided he couldn't have an adulterer representing the dealership. Word spread through Colt's social circle, and invitations dried up. His girlfriend of 2 years left him after seeing the photos on social media. I watched their worlds collapse with the detached interest of a scientist observing an experiment. This was what happened when people betrayed trust, when they thought they could take what didn't belong to them without consequences. Sophie came home from school one afternoon to find me in my office, surrounded by printouts of bank statements and legal documents. Dad, what are you doing? Protecting our future, I said without looking up. Making sure we're taken care of. By destroying Mom? I finally looked at her, this beautiful young woman who was about to learn some hard truths about the world. Your mother destroyed herself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. This isn't you, Sophie said, tears in her eyes. You're not a cruel person. Maybe I am, I said. Maybe I always was, and I just never had a reason to show it before. Mom made a mistake. Your mother made a choice, a series of choices, and choices have consequences. Sophie stared at me for a long moment, then shook her head. I don't recognize you anymore. After she left, I sat alone in my office, surrounded by the evidence of my methodical destruction of 2 people I'd once loved. Sophie was right. I didn't recognize myself either. But I'd gone too far to stop now. Besides, I wasn't finished yet. The Riverside Garden wedding fair was Dana's last chance at salvaging her career. After losing most of her clients and her business partner, she'd managed to scrape together enough money to rent a small booth at the city's biggest annual wedding expo. It was a desperate move, but desperation made people careless. I learned about her plans from Sophie, who'd been trying to help her mother rebuild. My daughter had inherited my strategic mind and Dana's determination, a combination that made her formidable when she set her mind to something. She's really trying, Dad, Sophie said over breakfast the Saturday morning of the fair. Maybe you could ease up a little? Ease up on what? I asked innocently. You know what? The reviews, the social media posts, the whisper campaign. Everyone in town knows about the affair by now. Good. Truth should be public knowledge. Sophie slammed her coffee mug down hard enough to slosh liquid onto the table. This isn't about truth anymore. This is about revenge, and it's making you into someone I don't like very much. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said, and I genuinely was. Losing Sophie's respect was the one consequence of my actions that actually hurt. But some things were more important than being liked. Are you? Are you really sorry? Because you don't act like it. I looked at my daughter, this fierce, intelligent young woman who was about to leave for college and start her own adult life. She deserved to know the truth about the people who'd raised her. Sophie, there's something I need to tell you about your mother's affair. I already know about Mom and Colt. I figured it out weeks ago. Not just Colt. There's someone else involved. Someone who's been helping your mother hide money and plan her exit strategy. Sophie's face went pale. What are you talking about? I pulled out the burner phone I'd taken from Dana's gym bag and showed her the text thread with Jay. Sophie read in silence, her expression growing more horrified with each message. Jasmine, she whispered. Mom's business partner. Former business partner. Jasmine's been blackmailing your mother, threatening to expose even more details about the affair unless Dana paid her hush money. That's why Mom sold her share of the business for so little. That's why your mother has been stealing from our joint accounts. She's been paying blackmail to keep her girlfriend quiet. Sophie looked up at me, confusion replacing horror. Girlfriend? I showed her the rest of the messages, the ones I'd been saving for last. The intimate texts between Dana and Jasmine, dating back over a year. The affair with Colt had been recent, messy, and careless. The relationship with Jasmine was older, deeper, and far more calculating. Your mother wasn't just cheating on me, I said quietly. She was planning to leave me for Jasmine and take half of everything we'd built together. The affair with Colt was just a distraction, something to keep me focused on the wrong betrayal while she set up her real escape plan. Sophie stared at the phone for a long time, processing the implications. When she finally looked up, her eyes were hard in a way I'd never seen before. She's at the wedding fair right now? Booth 17, according to the program. And Jasmine? Helping her, I assume. They're trying to salvage what's left of their business relationship. Sophie stood up abruptly. I need to see this for myself. Sophie, wait. No, Dad. I need to see who my mother really is. An hour later, I found myself walking through the Riverside Gardens, following the signs to the wedding fair. I hadn't planned to confront Dana publicly again, but Sophie's reaction had changed something in me. My daughter deserved to see the truth, even if it hurt. The fair was crowded with engaged couples, wedding vendors, and curious onlookers. I found booth 17 easily enough. It was one of the smallest, tucked away in a corner with minimal foot traffic. Dana stood behind a folding table covered with brochures and sample photos, looking tired and defeated. Jasmine was nowhere to be seen. Sophie approached the booth first, with me hanging back to observe. Mom, Sophie said, her voice carefully neutral. Dana's face lit up with genuine joy. Sweetheart, you came. I wasn't sure you would, after everything that's happened. I wanted to support you, Sophie said. Dad told me about Jasmine. Dana's smile faltered. What about Jasmine? About the blackmail, about the money, about your relationship with her. The color drained from Dana's face. Sophie, I can explain. Can you? Because I've been trying to understand how my mother could betray my father with one person, let alone two. A small crowd was starting to gather, drawn by the tension in Sophie's voice. I recognized several of Dana's former clients, vendors who'd worked with her company, and at least 2 local wedding bloggers who were already pulling out their phones. Sophie, please not here, Dana whispered. Why not here? This is your big comeback, right? Your chance to rebuild your reputation? Sophie's voice was getting louder, carrying across the garden. Maybe people should know what kind of person they're really dealing with. That's when Jasmine appeared, hurrying over from another booth, with panic written across her face. She was younger than Dana, maybe 35, with the kind of polished appearance that came from expensive salons and designer clothes. Dana, we need to leave, Jasmine said urgently. Now. Jasmine! Sophie turned to face her mother's business partner and lover. Perfect timing. I was just asking Mom about your special arrangement. Jasmine looked between Sophie and Dana, clearly calculating her options. I don't know what you're talking about. The blackmail, Sophie said clearly, her voice carrying across the garden. The money you've been extorting from my mother to keep quiet about her affairs. The crowd was growing larger now, drawn by the unfolding drama. I spotted Mrs. Harrington among the onlookers, her face set in lines of disapproval. Several other prominent society women flanked her, all of them watching Dana's public humiliation with fascination. That's not true, Jasmine said, but her voice lacked conviction. Really? Sophie pulled out Dana's burner phone, the one I'd given her before leaving the house. Because I have all your text messages right here. Should I read them out loud? Sophie, please, Dana begged. Don't do this. Don't do what, Mom? Tell the truth? Isn't that what you should have done months ago? That's when I stepped forward, moving through the crowd to stand beside my daughter. Hello, Dana, I said. Jasmine, nice to see you both together. Makes things simpler. Dana looked at me with a mixture of fear and hatred. Ethan, you've done enough. Leave us alone. I'm not doing anything, I said innocently. Sophie's the one asking questions. I'm just here for moral support. You're here to destroy me, Dana said. You've already taken my business, my clients, my reputation. What more do you want? I want people to know who you really are, I said. Not the perfect wife and mother you pretended to be, but the person who lies, cheats, steals, and manipulates everyone around her. And what does that make you? Dana shot back. The man who spent weeks systematically destroying two people's lives? What kind of person does that make you? It was a fair question, one I'd been avoiding for weeks. What kind of person had I become? The kind of person who finishes what other people start, I said finally. I pulled out an envelope and handed it to Dana. DNA test results. Turns out Sophie isn't my biological daughter. The crowd gasped. Sophie went white. Dana stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. That's impossible, Dana whispered. Open it, I said. With shaking hands, Dana opened the envelope and pulled out the lab results. Her face crumpled as she read them. 18 years, I said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. 18 years of raising another man's child while you lied to my face about everything. Sophie grabbed the papers from Dana's hands, scanning them quickly. When she looked up, her eyes were filled with tears. Dad, she whispered. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, I said gently, but I thought you deserved to know the truth about your family. Who? Sophie asked, her voice barely audible. Who's my real father? Dana was sobbing now, unable to speak. It was Jasmine who answered, her voice hollow with defeat. Marcus Webb, she said, your mother's college boyfriend. He died in a car accident before you were born. The crowd erupted in whispers and gasps. Phones came out, recording every moment of our family's complete destruction. I felt a moment of regret, seeing Sophie's devastation, but it was too late to stop now. So there you have it, I announced to the crowd. Dana Merrick, wedding planner extraordinaire, adulteress, thief, liar, and fraud. Still think she's the right person to plan your special day? Dana collapsed into a chair behind her booth, completely broken. Jasmine knelt beside her, trying to offer comfort while the crowd pressed closer, eager for more drama. I took Sophie's hand and led her away from the chaos, leaving Dana and Jasmine to face the consequences of their choices alone. As we walked through the gardens, Sophie finally spoke. You're not my father, she said, her voice numb with shock. I'm the man who raised you, who loved you, who will always be your dad regardless of biology, I said. That doesn't change. But you used me to hurt her. You used me as a weapon. I stopped walking and turned to face her. Yes, I did. And I'm sorry for that. Are you? Are you really sorry? Or are you just sorry that I'm upset? I looked at this young woman I'd raised as my own, this person I loved more than anyone else in the world, and realized that my revenge had cost me the only thing that truly mattered. I'm sorry for all of it, I said. But I'm not sorry that the truth came out. Sophie studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I need some time to process this, she said. All of it. I understand. Do you? Because I'm not sure I understand any of it anymore. She walked away, leaving me alone in the garden with the distant sound of chaos still echoing from the wedding fair. I'd won, completely and utterly. Dana's life was in ruins. Jasmine was exposed as a blackmailer and homewrecker, and everyone in the city knew exactly what kind of people they really were. So why did victory taste so much like ashes? 3 months later, I sat in my empty house, surrounded by the silence that had replaced my family. Dana had moved in with her sister in another state, trying to rebuild her life away from the scandal. Jasmine had left town entirely, her reputation destroyed beyond repair. Sophie had gone to college early, choosing a school across the country from both her parents. The divorce was finalized with minimal fuss. Dana got almost nothing, thanks to the adultery clause and evidence of financial fraud. I kept the house, most of our assets, and my reputation as the wronged husband who'd fought back. But I'd lost the only person whose opinion truly mattered to me. Sophie called occasionally, brief conversations that felt like talking to a stranger. She was polite, distant, and careful never to mention anything important. I'd saved her college fund from Dana's theft, but I couldn't save our relationship from my revenge. The house felt like a mausoleum, filled with memories of a family that no longer existed. I'd won the war, but lost everything worth fighting for. They wanted a villain, I thought, sitting in my empty living room with a glass of whiskey and the echo of my own footsteps for company. I gave them a legend.